Well, Hanok Young, Haksameach, as we
Yeah.
prepare to enter into the festival of Shavuot. And, this is one of those times in which, let's just, well, I'll throw it right on out there. You do a different counting than I do, but we still, do the program together. It's an amazing thing that we
Right.
can disagree and still work together, isn't it?
Yeah, I would have phrased it that you do a different calendar than we
Oh,
do.
okay. Yeah, okay.
Um,
Okay.
there is something to be said for doing something one way for 3,500 years, but in any case,
Yeah, well,
it's
there's a
it's fine.
discussion we'll
All
have
good.
when you're here and we're driving down the road. But
Yeah,
hey,
not at all a problem.
it's one of those days. Yeah, I'm kind of going into this one with I don't know whether to be joyful or cry. Of course, we had the amazing rescue, and
Astounding,
yeah,
beyond
and
belief.
the news reports here are just stupid. I mean, stupid on steroids is just ridiculous. The way that they're reporting this, maybe you can get into that, but then of course the
Sure.
news this morning is four soldiers fallen from the Givati uh, brigade, which of course you know that I'm pretty well connected with.
Yeah,
One of them was from Modi'in once
yeah,
again.
yeah. May Hashem and the IDF avenge their
Yeah.
blood. I can't even imagine a time that you and I will record where we don't have 37 things
I
to
know.
cover and we only wind up doing five or six.
Yeah.
So let me jump in as quickly as we can. So yes, we lost four more soldiers yesterday, another one from Modi'in. Just a few hours ago, I stood outside, and it's incredibly hot here
Yeah.
in Israel. I mean, we were having heat waves, and then it was cooling off. Nothing's cooling off anymore. I don't think until sometime in October. Make a long story short, I stood with those citizens of Modi'in who were standing in honor of another soldier being buried. Again, Modi'in is only Israel's 18th largest city. Um, we sadly lead the country in numbers of fallen soldiers, certainly per capita, without a doubt. The other two population groups that I want to point out that are overly represented in the killed in action are the Ethiopian Israeli community, heavily overly represented, as well as the Dati Leumi, the knitted kippah, the religious soldiers.
Mhm.
Enormous numbers. Really, really startling. We haven't spoken at all about the alleged ceasefire plans because it's like the shell game. It changes seemingly every day.
Yeah.
This is what Biden says that Israel said. Netanyahu denies it. Hamas has still not even replied 2 weeks later. So it's beyond belief. The near miraculous rescue and liberation of four of our hostages. And again, very important to note, they were held by alleged civilians, and our troops and the hostages came under very heavy fire, RPGs, and Kalashnikovs, the AK-47. And note that they were all fired by quote unquote civilians. And
You,
the
you
world
you
is in an
forgot a word
uproar.
there, Hanok. It's innocent civilians. Okay,
Well, the
remember.
BBC reporter was
Yeah,
interviewing one of our
stupid.
spokespeople, and she asked, would it not have been possible to have given the civilians
Oh
uh,
yeah,
a heads up that we were coming? I mean, it just the world has gone absolutely insane.
yeah.
Um, Jumping quickly to other topics. So I can't comment on any potential ceasefire deal. Um, I think it's the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, I don't know which one, reported that it's very clear that Hamas has issued directives that if any of our security forces are approaching the hostages, they are to kill them. Um, it appears that Biden and the American government are looking to unilaterally negotiate with Hamas for the hostages that are American citizens, of which there were several. So I could spew all kinds of angst about that. I'm not going to.
Now, let's make it clear that when you say American citizens, these are those that hold dual passports.
Yeah,
Correct.
Eastern American
Yeah.
Israelis, like I
I
am.
just want to make sure
Yeah.
that people don't misunderstand that, that some American tourist is there, which
No,
doesn't mean anything
no,
either. So,
but that's a perfect intro into tourism because I've been sharing my observations about tourism, but today I actually have some real facts because the government is comparing it to tourist numbers of last year, this time last year. So we are somewhere between 25 and 30%
mm,
of tourism, which actually is much better than I thought.
yeah.
And the tourism, interestingly enough, the people coming are either Jews from outside of Israel coming and solidarity visits, volunteer work, or what it's called faith-based tourism, evangelical Christians who feel committed to Israel. So there's a lot of that happening. So that in and of itself is encouraging. In 6 days, I'll be in America.
Wow.
I have to be honest with you, feeling horrifically guilty about leaving the country right now. I mean, not that, God forbid our war effort depends upon me. But it's almost like Kate Winslet, in Titanic, it's like, don't give me a chair to hang on to, but it is what it is. This is a presentation coming up that will open some eyes and potentially close some ears. I usually don't pull any punches, but this is full-blown thermonuclear war. And people will either receive it or not. And frankly, at this point, I really don't care. I mean, I'll be honest with you. You see, that's the thing that's really interesting. Like people say to me, like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'll come in 2025. I don't know. So you know what? Don't come. It's fine. It's fine. Don't waste my time and energy with your anxiety and what you perceive to be when I'm living the reality. And it's fine. But anyway, there's something that you asked me the other day, and I said, let's talk about it online. The organization that I've been working very extensively with, High on the Har, the emblem of the organization actually has the dome.
Mm-hmm.
The question is why? And there's a great reason. The situation on the Temple Mount has been such that if you wore a shirt or a jacket with a temple logo on it,
mm-hmm.
you were either forced to take it off before entering
Mm-hmm.
or were not allowed on. And think back to some of the groups that we've brought up, depending on what people are wearing. Okay. But here's the really interesting thing. Someone listening to this right now is going to be saying, wait a second, Hanoch, I've seen you with the shirts and the patches and all that. So what's going on? So let me tell you, because it's changed within a very few months. I would love to tell you I'm the one that caused it to change. I would love to tell you that, but that's not true. But I'm part of the change, which is a really, really exciting thing. So understand something. So part of the reason the dome was used as the logo is High on the Har is not looking to appeal directly to the religious Jewish community.
Okay.
High on the Har is looking to appeal to people who are Jewish or not Jewish, love Israel, and we want to get them informed and give them a consciousness about the temple. But more so before then, the focus is on equal prayer rights on the Temple Mount. Now, our police, have said unequivocally to leaders of the Temple Mount groups, of which there are several. It's a Jewish country. Of course, we've got several groups doing the same thing,
Yeah.
not working with each other. Or
Yeah.
we kind of are, and we're not. That you keep bringing people, we have no choice but to go to the government and get more hours to allow it. So there's a really, really key thing. Now, there are two major differences. There's the Jewish groups, or those who join the Jewish groups. We are under the supervision of the Israeli police.
Mm-hmm.
We can wear whatever we want, and we have nothing to do with the Islamic Waqf, the Muslim Religious Council. Tourists who go up, not as part of the Jewish group, or as a tour group, or as individuals, doesn't matter, are under the direct supervision and the decision-making of the Islamic Waqf.
Ah,
So when they decide, well, your shorts are, may go past your knees, but you got to put on like a little skirt. Or if you're wearing an openly Jewish symbol, or you're wearing an IDF sweatshirt, or you're wearing something like that, they can get the police to force you to either leave or take it off.
okay.
So High on the Har, within the time frame from October to now, has introduced a line of clothing that at first had the temple logo on the back. That way, when the police objected, you could just put a jacket over it.
Mm-hmm.
In a very short period of time, then they've got the kind of what I call the maximalist shirts, which it appears, shockingly, I'm the first person in Israel to order them. They're not available here. It's all based on an order. You order them and they're shipped from overseas. So that's why a few weeks ago, when I wore it up on the Temple Mount, not with the High on the Har group, but with the regular Israeli groups, they were all taking pictures of me because they had never seen the shirt before.
Hmm.
So the picture that you see on my cover pic on Facebook, it's got the big shirt and I'm just standing there like this. They had never seen, they took that picture. It was like a big thing to them. Okay. Now, speak about High on the Har. Just the other day, I mentioned that we were having a special event for Rosh Chodesh,
Yeah.
the new month of Sivan, and there was going to be an art exhibit because we're trying to, again, this whole idea of temple consciousness, of the fact that every home in Gaza that our troops have had to go into has a picture of the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
So, first time in my life I ever won anything. A raffle, and I got this. Can you see it?
Yeah. Got it. Wow.
So this is really cool. Now, the thing that's funny, I didn't want to tell them, this is now the fourth temple picture, and then I have a model as well, fifth, that I have in my little apartment here.
Okay.
But that's me. That's me. Having said that, a couple of things I want, because people always say, Hanoch, what I appreciate the most is you share things that we don't hear on even the Israeli news. So let me share something with you that's going on now. There is a split in our society, not surprising, relating to the hostages.
Yeah.
The bring them home, which I thought is like a slogan that we could all agree upon, whether here in Israel or outside of Israel, means two different things to two different groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it means do everything that we possibly can to bring our hostages, those alive, home. To many Israelis, it is beginning to mean, and these are the ones that are demonstrating, bring them back, negotiate, and do whatever it takes, make any kind of deal, and make it happen. Now, I have to tell you, criticizing Netanyahu for not doing a deal is unfair.
Yeah.
There is a deal on the table. Hamas has not even replied to it. It's Hamas that's preventing this from happening. Now, I think some of the terms that we've offered are disastrous for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's an internal argument. Again, reminding everyone of the horrific amount of terrorists including Sinwar, who runs Hamas, who orchestrated this whole horrific massacre. He was released for Gilad Shalit. It's a horrible situation to be in, but this is something, important for people to understand.
So these are pretty much the leftists, which would be Peace Now, groups like that, that are saying, bring them back at any cost, whatever we got to do.
I wouldn't label them as Peace Now per se,
Okay.
because it includes obviously the families of the
Yeah.
hostages.
Okay.
And now that we were able to rescue 4, it's kind of like, why can't we do more? And it is amazing that around the world, all people care about, seemingly, is the number of casualties in Gaza, of Gazans. Not the fact that there were hostages there. And this is a war crime, and they're taking civilian hostages. It's a war crime. No one cares. It is an
No.
amazing world. It is
Yeah.
an amazing world we're living in.
It's like, no people who, for the most part, the media and all those mental midgets, have just disregarded that anything actually happened on October 7th, even though one of the hostages was one that was shown on the motorcycle. It's just,
No,
I mean, I watch the news and I see the broadcasts, and even from Israel, I mean, it's just like, this doesn't make sense. Israel should be running the videos of what happened on a 24/7,
okay.
news
Now,
cycle.
okay. In New York City, there is an exhibit of what happened at Nova
Yeah.
dance party. There was a demonstration that blocked off the street. And at the demonstration, first of all, and think of the obscenity of calling for an intifada revolution at an exhibit marking the slaughter
Yeah.
of civilians. But again, not civilians, they're Jews. And Jewish blood in the world is cheap. So what is amazing, though, is the demonstration, they're carrying the flags of Hamas and Hezbollah, 2 organizations that the United States government has recognized as terrorists. Really, I just don't get it.
Not to be over the top in this, but you said Jewish blood in the world is cheap.
Yep.
I would say that Jewish blood in this world is a delicacy.
To be savored.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Hey, with something like that, you can one-up me anytime, Mike. You're
Well,
right.
I mean,
You're right.
it's just true. I mean, you see what's going on, and yeah, this thing with the hostages. One border patrol person was killed. It's miraculous that there were not many other IDF soldiers that died in this. I mean, just
We
watching
came under heavy fire.
watching the cameras.
Our guys came under heavy fire.
And then, but then of course you guys are the ones that are blamed for, however many so-called innocent Palestinians that were firing. When you're
Crazy.
standing behind an AK-47 and you're pulling the trigger, you shouldn't be labeled as innocent.
Even if you're 16 years old. Now, I mentioned this at the beginning of the war. For years, we've been watching all these videos of summer camps that Hamas has been running.
Yeah, Kathy was watching one last night.
Teaching kids how to be terrorists.
Yeah.
How to fire weapons, how to plant explosives. And it's interesting. America faced this in Iraq as well. And in fact, in the movies that they've shown and they've made about the American involvement in Iraq, they show this. But again, America can do something about it because it's America.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And you
yeah.
got Biden and Blinken, and and it makes me feel like I should be drinking. I don't I for me to be tongue-tied is a very, very rare
This is
experience. I mean,
this is a true statement.
there was one time I suffered from dehydration in the tour guides course. We were doing a very rigorous hike in the mountains in the desert, and I kind of slumped down. And one of my colleagues gave me some water. I felt fine, but while I was in my little mini delirium briefly, they said I was still cracking jokes. I mean, so
Okay.
I've always got
Yeah.
something to say.
Yeah.
Um,
And by the
so
way, as you're doing that, we're actually losing you because you're we're kind of going down here. You're adjust your camera back up.
oh, is that? Oh, I guess I was leaning on that. Sorry about that. I guess I'm talking about slipping down, and I and I,
Either
I
that or
was.
I was thinking maybe you're growing or something. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know if I'm growing, but I'm definitely gruesome. There's no doubt
Okay.
about it.
Okay. So
Now,
what about Benny Gantz?
okay, so Benny Gantz has quit the war cabinet.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah.
And of course, he's accusing Netanyahu of not prosecuting the war properly. Now, meanwhile, of course, you've got Joe Biden, who, by the way, I saw this on Instagram. If anyone has ever seen the movie Deliverance, okay, the kid that's playing the banjo, if you wondered what he'd look like when he grew up and got old, he's a spitting image for Joe Biden.
Yeah. Seems like
Seriously, I mean, now everyone after watching this, go pull up Banjo Kid from Deliverance. But anyway,
no.
okay. So meanwhile, you've got Biden saying there's no doubt in his mind. His mind is a little tiny hollow
Well,
cavern.
you could have
There's
actually
no
taken the
doubt
word
in
you could have taken the word doubt out and just said there's no in
there's
his mind.
there's there's no doubt in his mind that Netanyahu has prolonged the war for his own benefit. This is an astounding thing to say about a democratically elected ally of the United States of America.
Mhm.
Now again, I didn't vote for Netanyahu, but the majority of my country voted for Likud to form the government.
Mhm.
I have to respect that. I respect democracy. So you've got all this going on. Now, the reality is, from what I've read and understand, and the people I've spoken to, this war should have been over in March,
Mhm.
should Israel have not been impeded from going into Rafah,
Sure.
and doing what needs to be done.
Sure.
And you know, it, it it's just okay. But I mentioned Udi, our dear friend Udi, Blue and White store. Anyone who's been with Mike or I has met Udi. A couple of things. And this is over a period of just like 2 visits stuff I overheard and then discussed with him. Number one, I didn't know this. His daughter
Mhm.
was engaged to a guy that was killed at Nova.
Yeah.
Now, Udi's wife's immediate family lived in Nahal Oz,
Mhm.
right in the Gaza envelope. The family was on a Hamas video, and I will describe it. Most people who've seen the videos have seen this particular family. It was the father, mother, and 2 young children. The father was wounded, and you see the four of them sitting on a couch. Obviously, they're frightened to death, and they're obviously being taken away by Hamas. That's Udi's wife's family, and they were killed. They didn't come all the way to Gaza. Now, I go to Udi, frankly, not simply because he's an amazing artist and not because he has great insights into the world. He's like my Yoda. This is my life coach. but because he encourages me.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of at a place mentally where like I'm beyond encouragement. But before then, I had never heard the way Udi pronounces his last name.
Hmm.
It's Mary Oz.
Ah,
Okay.
okay. I had never heard that either.
Okay. Well, hang on to what it means. So he was mentioning to someone because someone I had brought said, and how do you say your name? So he's like, Udi. He said, no, your last name. He said, Mary Oz. And my head like snapped around, and the person, and Udi said, you look like you want to say something. I said, well, the only time I've ever heard Mary was used during the revolt against the British. It's a synonym for Mered, the revolt.
Mm.
And when the underground organizations were working together, it was called Tnuat HaMeri. So he smiled and he said, yes, my father was in the Irgun,
Mm-hmm.
and Mary Oz means the strength of the revolt. That's where Udi got his last name. His father, Allah Shalom, of blessed memory, must have been a heck of a fighter. Among the other Irgun fighters to be called the strength of the revolt.
I knew his father.
Yes, I know you've met him. Yeah.
Um, as amazing of a man as Udi is, I know why. Uh, some of my fondest memories of Israel are actually during the Oslo War, the Second Intifada, and sitting down in that shop. You know that his dad's picture or painting is
Yes.
there on the
Yeah.
wall, and I would walk in, and he would always go in the back and fix me a coffee, and we would sit in. There was nobody in the old city back in those days again,
No,
and
no.
we would sit and talk for many hours. He never really talked about the war, but you knew that he was. I mean, he earned that name. I mean, it was him. That
Okay.
was literally him.
Now, so you met him. You had the privilege of meeting him.
Oh, yeah.
He had a beard, right? Okay. He made two oaths in his life, Udi's dad. One is as a fighter in 48, if he got the opportunity to come back to Jerusalem, he would never leave.
Yes.
And that's the famous story how, the letter goes back to Udi's mom, who just had his baby
Yeah.
sister, and Udi at 9 years old is sent
Yeah.
on a bus. Okay. The second oath was that he would not shave his beard until Israel reclaimed the eastern bank of the Jordan. Again, the symbol of the Irgun and Beitar, the organization that I belong to, was what was the supposed to be the Jewish homeland until 1922, where 2/3 of the so-called Mandate for Palestine were severed and the Kingdom of Transjordan was created, now called Jordan.
Yeah.
So there are so many reasons that my head spins when I'm around Udi. And these are just like another half dozen
Yeah.
more simultaneously. Now, Udi's daughter, who lost her fiance, gave up being religious in high school. But what she's done since his murder is she has fundraised money to have a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll written in his memory.
Wow.
So it's just beyond belief.
Yeah. It
It's
is.
it's it's really so I did tell Udi, by the way, that I was going to see you soon. So he said, well, will I send his, no, I'm not going to send your regards to Mike, Udi. No, I'm going to get away with that. Unbelievable man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable man.
Well, one last thing is that you guys had a little bit of an insight into Shem saying, "Hey, by the way, I'm still involved in this whole thing." As this week's Torah portion, Naso, is the letters that were the hostages' names. And of course, there's
Yeah.
only three letters and there's four hostages, but it still worked. And so I think the
Yeah,
message
people
to
people are freaking over that. Um, I just firmly believe that we're living in an era of prophecy.
yeah,
However, it's the part of the era of prophecy where Hashem is saying, I now, at this time in history, work through people and seemingly normal events. And this is the part I love. But y'all got to do your part. And the incredible rescue of our hostages is beyond belief. And at a time when we have so little good news to celebrate. Um, our finance ministry is projecting that this war will cost $67 billion, not shekels, dollars. So many areas of our, and it would be a whole nother talk comparing this to the period of the Yom Kippur War.
yeah.
And I just actually have too much to speak about when I come to America. So
Uh,
I'm really gonna have to like take a lot of pure drinks and speak very, very, very rapidly.
there you go. Okay. Sounds good. So well, 6 days from now you'll be heading this way. So
Well, heading to Kentucky, which I guess is that way.
that's
Yeah,
well, yeah, Kentucky. Okay, that's your first stop is Kentucky. All right. Wow,
yeah,
that's interesting place to start at, but we'll see how it goes. All right. Well,
absolutely.
hold on, be safe. I know that you're going through the packing process and all of those things,
Yeah,
but
allegedly.
look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah. Chag Sameach, Mike. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Be strong, man. Bye bye.